James Leininger, born in 1998, developed a fascination with warplanes, particularly from World War II. At just 2 years old, he began waking up repeatedly in the middle of the night, screaming about plane crashes and fiery explosions. While it's not too unusual for little children to have nightmares, what set James apart were the haunting specifics he offered. His parents, Andrea and Bruce, initially suspected these night terrors might be triggered by a random TV show or a storybook he saw. However, James soon began naming actual military aircraft, using terms unusual for a 2-year-old. He insisted the plane he flew took off from a ship called the Natoma. Further digging revealed the existence of USS Natoma Bay, an escort carrier that served in the Pacific during WWI. Seeking answers, James's parents discovered that a pilot named James M. Houston Jr. had indeed served aboard the USS Natoma Bay and was shot down near Iwo Jima in 1945. He was the only pilot from that unit who did not return. Over time, young James would refer to details eerily consistent with Houston's life, including knowledge of the exact spot where the plane was hit. Some acquaintances theorized that James's father, a passionate military history buff, might have somehow influenced his son's stories. Yet Andrea refuted this, stating Bruce never shared in-depth war specifics with their toddler. The child would also use oddly mature language, for example referencing a Corsair plane's difficulties when landing because of the angled approach. Eventually, the family contacted surviving crew members from the USS Natoma Bay. In group photos, James, only 3 or 4 at the time, recognized men who had served decades before he was born. He identified them by name, even though these names weren't in any typical war documentary or reading material for toddlers. The veterans themselves were astounded. Some of them had never spoken publicly about their war experiences, yet the boy managed to recall details that aligned perfectly with long-buried events. As he grew older, James's recollections began to fade, a pattern commonly seen in many child reincarnation stories. Still, for a moment in time, he offered a glimpse that seemed to merge one man's tragic WWI end with a little boy's new beginning. Dorothy Louise Eddy, also known as Seti, was born in 1904 near London. At the age of 3, she suffered a severe fall down a flight of stairs. Although she recovered physically, her parents soon noticed an extraordinary change in her behavior. Dorothy began having persistent dreams and visions of ancient Egypt, claiming she belonged to a world that existed thousands of years earlier. An unbreakable bond with ancient Egypt, Dorothy found museums, especially the Egyptian rooms, familiar in ways that shocked adults around her. During one museum trip, she reportedly ran to a statue, kissing its feet, exclaiming, "This is my home." She insisted that the images of the Nile, the temples, and the pharaohs invoked a deep sense of belonging. Family and friends first wrote this off as childhood fantasy, but as Dorothy grew, her knowledge of hieroglyphs and Egyptian deities became astonishing for someone with no formal training. She could interpret obscure carvings and recite stories of rituals rarely documented in conventional histories. A journey back home. In her 20s, she moved to Egypt and married an Egyptian man, taking the name Seti, mother of Seti. She claimed to remember a past life as Bentrashid, a temple priestess under the reign of Pharaoh Seti I, in the city of Abydos. Interestingly, she took up work with the Department of Antiquities at Abydos and impressed professional archaeologists with her advanced knowledge. Seti helped confirm the locations of hidden passages in the temple of Seti I. She identified specific wall carvings that weren't officially recorded or recognized. Renowned Egyptologists visited her for insight into lesser-known ceremonial practices. Though skeptics argued she must have gleaned information from extensive self-study, Seti herself always claimed it was the fruit of direct memories from a past life. Her unwavering devotion to preserving the temple and her documented success with archaeological predictions only deepened the mystery. The story of Shanti Devi captured the public's fascination. Born in Delhi, Shanti was just 4 years old when she began telling her parents about a past life in Mathura, a city about 90 miles away. She spoke of a husband, a routine of household chores, and alleged daily life details that seemed far beyond her age. Shanti claimed she had died during childbirth. She mentioned her husband's name, Kedar Nath. She described the neighborhood, the style of their home, and the local shops. Perplexed by her unwavering conviction, Shanti's father wrote to an address she mentioned in Mathura, hoping to verify any part of her recollections. To his astonishment, he received a reply from a Kedar Nath, whose wife Lugdi Devi had died during childbirth, just as Shanti described, and confrontation with the past under the auspices of a committee that included Mahatma Gandhi. Shanti was taken to Mathura to validate her story. She reportedly pointed out specific landmarks, recognized Kedarnath in a crowd, and identified members of Lugdi Devi's extended family, going so far as to mention intimate details of their lives behind closed doors. Locals were flabbergasted. The official investigative committee's final report acknowledged that Shanti's accounts were extraordinarily accurate, seemingly beyond random chance or deception. Despite attempts to label it as collective mania or a staged event, no conclusive proof of trickery emerged. Shanti's case influenced many Indian families' attitudes toward reincarnation and was widely covered in newspapers, igniting philosophical debates about the permanence of the soul and what ties might endure beyond the grave. A little boy named Cameron Macaulay surprised everyone by insisting his true home was on the Isle of Barra in the Outer Hebrides. Cameron's parents had never traveled there, nor did they have relatives from that remote island. Still, by the age of 5 he persistently asked, "Why aren't we going home?" Specific mentions of family and a White House. Cameron talked about a White House by a beach where small planes landed. He insisted he had a black and white dog and a second mother waiting for him. He recalled certain rooms inside the house, describing them as if they had left a strong impression on him. Feeling torn between skepticism and concern, his mother, Norma, reached out to a documentary crew for assistance. In 2006 they filmed a trip to Barra, capturing every reaction Cameron had upon arriving. Validation and astonishment on Barra. Cameron confidently led his mother to the remains of a White House near the shoreline. Although the property had changed over the years, some older locals remembered a family that once lived there, and certain details the boy gave matched their recollections. He also recognized a small airstrip, where planes routinely landed on the beach, just as he had described in Glasgow. While extensive genealogical proof was harder to nail down, the consistent alignment between Cameron's recollections and real facts about Barra left observers stunned. Many see it as evidence of a past life, while others remain uncertain how a child from urban Scotland could have gleaned these details. He startled his mother with elaborate stories about the old days in Hollywood. He seemed upset at no longer living in a mansion, recalled meeting famous actresses, and insisted he had danced on Broadway before the war. At first his parents humored him, imagining it was typical childhood fantasy. However, Ryan's claims became too specific to dismiss. While looking through an old Hollywood picture book, Ryan pointed at a 1930s film still and said, "That one is me." The figure in the photo turned out to be Marty Martin, a relatively obscure dancer and actor who later became a Hollywood agent. Ryan mentioned more than 50 verified details about Martin's life, like how many children he had, the color of the car he drove, the layout of his home, and an incident involving a pink Rolls-Royce. Stunned, the Hammonds family contacted Dr. Jim Tucker, a psychiatrist who specialized in children's past life memories. Further investigations, Tucker systematically cross-referenced Ryan's statements with public records and interviews with Martin's surviving relatives. The alignment of facts was extraordinary, especially since Marty Martin wasn't a major celebrity, so the information about him wasn't widely circulated. Ryan identified certain scenes from Martin's personal life that few people, if any, knew outside his close circle. Nonetheless, the case has been widely discussed in academic circles and popular media, challenging people to revisit their assumptions about identity and memory. Could the emotional imprint of an unfulfilled Hollywood life have carried over into a new existence? Barbro Karlén, a Swedish poet and writer, gained international notoriety for claiming she was the reincarnation of Anne Frank, the Jewish teenager whose diary chronicled the hidden life of her family during the Nazi occupation in World War II. Anne Frank died tragically in a concentration camp in 1945, leaving behind one of the most widely read personal accounts of the Holocaust. Barbro insisted her real name was Anne, not Barbro. She had intense phobias of men in uniforms, describing them as people who had taken her away. She wrote about cramped hiding places, rationed meals, and constant fear, details reminiscent of Anne Frank's own experiences. When Barbro was around 10, her family visited Amsterdam. Without guidance, she led them directly to the Anne Frank house. She pointed out small changes made since her time and grew upset when they found certain areas renovated. Museum staff members were startled by the precision of her comments, many of which weren't known from tourist brochures or the typical historical accounts. A controversial stand, Barbro Carlin's story has been praised by some as a testament to Anne Frank's enduring spirit. Others criticized it as opportunistic, but investigators who looked into her claims found certain subtle facts about Anne's life beyond the diary that Barbro seemed to know. Some Holocaust survivors found the concept emotionally complex. It was difficult to accept that someone so emblematic of WWE atrocities might have returned to the modern era. And yet, for others, it was a hopeful sign that life persists past immense suffering. Remembering a violent end in an Indian village near Taran, a boy whose family requested anonymity was born with a distinctive birthmark across his upper chest. From the time he could speak, he insisted he had been murdered by a gunshot in a prior life. He was barely 4 or 5 when he started talking about a neighboring village he claimed to know intimately. Disturbing recollections. He described a violent confrontation on a roadside, with intense pain in his back and chest. He complained that his current parents weren't his real family, which alarmed everyone. He pinpointed the location of what he claimed was his old house, describing a small shrine in the courtyard and specific fields around it. Curiosity eventually led his father to arrange a visit. They traveled to the neighboring village, and the boy guided them to a particular property. The locals recounted a murder that had occurred years earlier on a nearby path, matching the child's narrative. The victim was shot from behind, the bullet exiting near his chest, precisely where the boy's birthmark lay. Verification of hidden details. The child recognized some of the victim's relatives, who confirmed he knew things about their household that weren't public knowledge. He mentioned the victim's stolen valuables and a quarrel from the day of the murder. Many older villagers were left shaken, concluding that some intangible essence from the deceased might have found new life in this child. Cultural perspective and debate. Birthmarks are significant in several Asian cultures, often viewed as physical traces of how a previous life ended. Some religious traditions interpret them as karmic imprints carried over into the next incarnation. While modern science struggles to substantiate any direct link between birthmarks and traumatic past life memories, the specificity of this boy's story remains intriguing. Could it be an accident of imagination? Or does it suggest that emotional or violent events can imprint so powerfully that they linger beyond a single body? Each of these 7 stories cracks open the door to a realm where identity, memory, and even time itself appear fluid, where a soul might endure beyond one lifetime, carrying fragments of memory and emotion into the next. Skeptics propose countless alternative theories, from childhood fantasy to cryptomnesia, subconscious memory from external sources, or even carefully orchestrated pranks. Yet the enthralling consistency of these cases keeps researchers returning to them, searching for a deeper explanation. Some psychologists say children's brains are sponges, absorbing accidental details from television or overheard conversations. Others note the possibility of communal reinforcement or suggestions shaping a child's narrative. However, believers in reincarnation stress the improbable match between these children's statements and obscure historical facts. They argue that in many of these cases the children have had no plausible way to encounter such specialized information. In cultures where reincarnation is a mainstream concept, families sometimes encourage children to share past life recollections openly. By contrast, in regions where it's taboo or rarely discussed, such accounts might be dismissed before they're ever fully documented. Despite the cultural divides, the phenomenon persists worldwide, appearing in testimonies from the USA to India, from Brazil to Europe, consistently raising the same haunting questions about the nature of consciousness. In the end, whether you see these stories as compelling evidence of reincarnation or simply remarkable coincidences, they invite us to ponder the possibility that our sense of self may be more extensive, more resilient, and more mysterious than we commonly imagine. Some mediums and spiritual traditions even propose that trauma, unresolved emotions, or strong passions can latch onto a soul, setting the stage for what we interpret as past life memory. No matter what explanation resonates with you, it's undeniable that the experiences of James Leininger, Dorothy Eddy, Shanti Devi, Cameron Macaulay, Ryan Hammonds, Barbro Carlin, and the unnamed birthmark boy challenge us to look beyond the conventional borders of a single lifetime. They remind us that we may just be scratching the surface of how life, consciousness, and identity truly work. When we step back from the individual stories, a broader tapestry emerges, a mosaic of ancient wisdom and modern inquiry, one that stretches across time and space. What if our understanding of life isn't confined to a single birth, a single death, What if the essence of who we are carries on, subtly woven into the fabric of our daily lives, even if we can't recall every detail? Some researchers have spent decades exploring the phenomenon of past life memories, trying to decipher whether these recollections are simply vivid dreams, fragments of imagination, or something far more profound. Consider the possibility that our consciousness, like a river that flows continuously, might carve new paths even after it reaches what we perceive as an endpoint. The stories we've heard of a boy remembering battles of yesteryear, or a child from a remote island reconnecting with an ancient home, invite us to re-examine what it means to have an identity. They hint at the idea that each of us might be a repository of countless experiences, gathered like petals over many lifetimes. In many cultures, reincarnation isn't a fringe belief, it's an intrinsic part of the worldview. Eastern traditions, for instance, have long embraced the idea that life is cyclical. Hinduism and Buddhism teach that our actions, our karma, set the stage for how our souls manifest in future lives. It's a perspective that instills both hope and responsibility. Every decision isn't merely a momentary choice, but an echo that might shape an entire future existence. This concept encourages people to live more compassionately, knowing that the connections we forge may extend well beyond our present lives. Modern science, too, has dipped its toes into these enigmatic waters. Although mainstream neuroscience and psychology often attribute these recollections to the quirks of a developing brain, there remains a small but persistent group of researchers who believe that what we call reincarnation might have a basis in quantum mechanics or the mysterious nature of consciousness. Experiments with time perception, where moments of extreme stress or wonder seem to stretch or contract time, suggest that our experience of reality is far more malleable than the ticking of a clock might imply. Some even speculate that altered states of consciousness could open a window, however brief, to memories from a past existence. There are also accounts that speak to the transformative power of reincarnation on personal identity. Imagine growing up feeling inexplicably connected to a culture, a language, or even a historical era you've never encountered in your current life. Such experiences can shatter the notion of a fixed self, replacing it with a sense of continuity that transcends the limitations of time and geography. This perspective has the potential to change how we approach our lives, urging us to embrace the mystery rather than fear it. When you start to see yourself as part of a larger continuum, a story that has been written over centuries, the everyday struggles and triumphs acquire a new dimension. They become part of an epic journey, a series of lessons learned and unlearned across lifetimes. The impact on personal transformation can be profound. Many individuals who claim to have had past life memories report that these experiences have led them to a deeper understanding of themselves. Some say it brings comfort during times of grief, as the idea that a loved one's spirit endures offers solace in the face of loss. Others find that revisiting these memories, even if only in fleeting dreams or flashes of insight, inspires them to live more mindfully, to treat others with greater kindness, and to approach life with a sense of wonder and humility. Culturally, reincarnation has inspired a rich body of art, literature, and music. It's a theme that pops up in ancient scriptures, modern novels, and even blockbuster films. These narratives don't just serve as entertainment, they resonate with a deep-seated yearning to understand our place in the cosmos. The notion that each of us could be reborn into different circumstances, perhaps even into lives of great achievement or profound suffering, challenges the idea of destiny as a static path. Instead, it paints a picture of life as a dynamic interplay of chance, choice, and cosmic design. At the crossroads of science and spirituality, reincarnation continues to spark debates and inspire research. Even if you approach these stories with a healthy dose of skepticism, the questions they raise are anything but trivial. What is the true nature of consciousness? Could our lives be just one part of a much grander story that spans centuries, or even millennia? And if so, what responsibilities do we carry knowing that our actions might ripple through time, affecting not only our current life but countless futures? In this ongoing exploration, the boundary between the physical and the metaphysical blurs. It challenges us to rethink our understanding of death, not as an end, but as a transformation, a doorway to another stage of existence. Whether these ideas find firm footing in empirical science, or remain part of our rich tapestry of myths and beliefs, they offer a compelling lens through which to view our lives. They invite us to live with greater empathy, to cherish the mysteries of our existence, and to keep an open heart toward the infinite possibilities that lie ahead. As you reflect on these ideas, consider how they might subtly shift your perspective on everyday life. Perhaps the next time you experience a fleeting memory that doesn't seem to belong, or a sense of déjà vu that leaves you wondering if you've been here before, you might smile at the possibility that your soul carries echoes from another time, a reminder that our journey is far from over. When we examine these stories of reincarnation, we're not just looking at isolated incidents. Each case is a thread in a vast tapestry of human experience. At its core, reincarnation challenges our conventional ideas of time and identity. What does it mean to truly live? If our consciousness can transcend a single life, then perhaps every experience, every memory, even the ones we can't recall, contributes to a broader, multi-layered journey of the soul. Across centuries and cultures, the belief in reincarnation has served as both comfort and catalyst. In Eastern philosophies, particularly within Hinduism and Buddhism, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is woven into the fabric of existence. The concept of karma, the idea that every action creates ripples that extend far beyond the present, encourages people to live with moral awareness, compassion, and responsibility. The notion that one's present actions may directly influence the circumstances of a future life can be profoundly motivating, steering behavior towards self-improvement and ethical choices. For many, this isn't just a metaphysical theory but a practical guide to living, offering hope that even in moments of failure or despair, there's always a chance for renewal. Western thinkers, too, have been intrigued by the possibility of reincarnation, albeit often through the lens of psychology and parapsychology. Researchers have explored phenomena such as déjà vu, unexplained phobias, and unaccounted-for memories in children as potential evidence of past lives. Critics argue that these instances could be products of imagination or the brain's tendency to fill gaps in memory, yet, the sheer consistency across many cases, details that align with historical records or are verified by independent sources, remains difficult to dismiss entirely. It forces us to ask, could there be more to our memory than what is stored in our cerebral cortex? Might our minds, in moments of deep introspection or altered states, access a reservoir of experiences accumulated over multiple lifetimes? In this light, reincarnation becomes a bridge between science and spirituality. Neuroscientists and quantum theorists have proposed that consciousness might be more than a mere byproduct of brain activity. Some suggest that our identity could be linked to a quantum field, a timeless, energy-based network where information, including memories and personality traits, is stored in a way that isn't limited by our physical form. This perspective posits that when the body ceases to function, the consciousness, along with its impressions, lessons, and emotional imprints, might continue to exist in another state or even transfer into another body. While these theories are on the fringes of mainstream science, they echo the ancient wisdom found in many religious traditions. The transformative power of these ideas lies in how they can reshape our understanding of life's purpose. If our souls are eternal, then every moment of suffering, every triumph, and every experience contributes to a journey of endless learning and evolution. The notion that we might have lived multiple lives encourages a more compassionate outlook on human behavior. It suggests that a person's current struggles or virtues might be the echoes of experiences long past, a series of lessons that continue to mold their character. This idea can be both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reminds us of our limitations in understanding the totality of our existence, and empowering because it instills the belief that growth and redemption are perpetual possibilities. Moreover, the cultural impact of reincarnation extends into art, literature, and even popular media. Countless novels, films, and television shows explore themes of rebirth, not merely as fantastical plots but as profound commentaries on the human condition. These narratives tap into our innate desire to believe that life isn't confined to the transient, material world. They invite us to envision a reality where the pain of loss is mitigated by the promise of reunion, where mistakes are not final but part of an ongoing process of growth. In this sense, reincarnation serves as a metaphor for transformation, urging us to see our lives as chapters in a grand, ongoing saga rather than isolated, definitive episodes. Yet for all its appeal, reincarnation also raises challenging questions. How do we reconcile the seemingly random nature of our current circumstances with the idea that they are the result of actions in past lives? Can we ever truly know the source of our deepest fears or inexplicable talents? Or are they just fragments of an unfinished story from a time we cannot recall? And what does it mean for free will if our souls are bound to a cycle of rebirth? Do we have the power to break free from this cycle? Or is it an inescapable cosmic law? These questions strike at the heart of human existence. They force us to confront the limits of our knowledge and to accept that the mysteries of life might extend far beyond what our rational minds can comprehend. For some, the possibility of reincarnation offers solace in the face of mortality, a belief that death is not an end but a transformation. For others, it provokes a sense of existential unease, challenging the foundations of identity and the continuity of the self. In communities where reincarnation is embraced as truth, there is often a profound sense of interconnectedness. People speak of souls meeting again across different lifetimes, of relationships that defy the boundaries of time and space. These accounts, whether witnessed through the recollections of a child or chronicled in historical research, suggest that the human spirit is resilient and far more complex than our physical forms might indicate. They invite us to imagine that every life is but a single verse in an epic poem, each verse contributing to the overall beauty and mystery of our shared human experience. As you reflect on these ideas, consider how they might influence your own perspective on life and death. Perhaps the next time you experience a flash of déjà vu, or feel inexplicably drawn to a particular place or person, you'll wonder if it's not just a trick of memory, but a whisper from a past life echoing into the present. These possibilities, as speculative as they may seem, remind us that the boundaries between what we know and what we dream are often blurred, and that the story of the soul might be as eternal as the universe itself. In the end, these remarkable stories invite us to reconsider the very fabric of our existence. They challenge the boundaries between life and death, urging us to see our current existence not as an isolated incident, but as a single thread woven into a vast, timeless tapestry. If our souls indeed carry memories, experiences, and lessons from past lifetimes, then every moment of joy, sorrow, and wonder in our lives might be part of an endless journey of growth and transformation. Think about the possibility that the inexplicable flashes of déjà vu, the deep, unshakable connections to far-off lands or unknown people, and the sudden vivid recollections of experiences that seem to belong to someone else could be whispers from a life once lived. These phenomena compel us to question the finality of death and the limits of our current understanding. Perhaps each life is not a closed chapter, but rather a page in an ever-unfolding story, where every ending paves the way for a new beginning. Such ideas are not just the domain of ancient philosophies or esoteric traditions, they resonate with modern scientific explorations into the nature of consciousness and memory. Whether or not we can fully prove reincarnation, the possibility invites us to live with greater empathy and a heightened sense of responsibility. Every action, every choice might ripple through time, influencing not only our present lives but also the potential of future ones. These stories, with all their mystery and strangeness, ultimately encourage us to embrace the unknown. They remind us that while we may never have all the answers, the search for truth is a journey that enriches our understanding of life itself. If you felt a spark of wonder or questioned your reality after hearing these accounts, know that you're part of a much larger dialogue, a quest for meaning that transcends the boundaries of a single lifetime. If this exploration has resonated with you, share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Remember, every question and every reflection is a step toward a deeper understanding of the profound mystery that is our existence.